Welcome back to the PT Graduate Podcast. My guest today, Mr. John Growcott. Hey, John.
Hi, Rich. How are you today?
I am very well indeed. You're looking well. You're looking well.
Thank you. Not bad for an old fella.
Lots of wisdom. Lots of wisdom. Um, Tell us a bit about what you do, John. You're in Christchurch, right?
Yeah, just
Yeah.
just situated just out of Christchurch in a place called Prebbleton in the
Okay.
Selwyn district.
Okay.
So yeah, I run my own business from home.
Yeah.
So I have a small studio set up here, and where I run group fitness and personal training. Um, yeah, and it works well because it's a
Mm.
very small community.
Right.
Um, yeah, when I first come here, there was or probably 1,200 people in the community.
Yeah.
Since earthquakes, that's changed quite a bit. So there's about 5,000 people here, but it's still relatively small. So everybody pretty much knows everybody, which is
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
So you've got that feel of that small community base. Everywhere you go in the community, you know somebody, somebody knows you. So yeah,
That's fantastic. And so, I guess there's a strong word of mouth piece in terms of business referrals and growing your client base.
absolutely, yeah. To be fair, there's probably about six personal training businesses in this small community.
Right.
But in saying that, there's no real competition of each other. We all are
Mm,
doing stuff slightly different as well,
mm, mm.
but there is still plenty of work for everybody
Yeah.
because some are only operating on a part-time basis, where others, like myself, are operating full-time.
Sure. Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. And it sounds like you've obviously all found your own niche as opposed to trying to replicate what the other is doing, and in that way, there's a good share of the whole fitness pie, essentially.
Yeah, there is. And I think the clientele, I suppose I'm fortunate that we live in in a community that with very good disposable income.
Right.
That always helps, especially with the
Mm,
way cost of living is at the moment.
mm.
In saying that, everybody's still watching their dollars, but yeah, it hasn't affected myself personally. Can't speak for the other trainers around the area, but
Mm.
we've just recently had a brand new gym set up here as well, Flex Fitness.
Right.
But again, since that started probably 12 months ago, it really hasn't affected my business at all.
Mm, mm, mm.
Um, and I think one of the good things in the small community, knowing a lot of people, is that it's probably been 12 years since I've run an advert. So
Yeah.
advertising cost is so huge in business these days. It's one of the big costs. So avoiding that is a real plus. Yeah.
Mm, mm. And is that something that you've sort of found relatively straightforward in terms of finding those clients, connecting with new people because of the size of the community and everybody knowing everybody?
Yeah. When I look along my street, my neighbors alone, there's a good portion of them that are clients. And I suppose the ones that don't come constantly tell me they feel guilty, uh, because their neighbours are coming. So, yeah, so that word of mouth gets around. People know who you are, what you do, and of course, the other side of it is being involved in the local primary school,
Right.
in the sports clubs that are represented in our community.
Right.
So, giving time to those community places is really important to
Mm,
build your business, but to build you as a person, I think too, your character, who you are, what you do. And that goes a long way. Giving a little and getting a little
yeah.
back. So
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, that's really probably enhanced my business. Um, and a lot of my clients are involved in the sports clubs themselves. So
Mm, mm,
again, no matter whether you go there or the supermarket, or you're going to run into someone and
mm.
everything takes a lot longer because everyone's having a chat. So it's a good thing. It's a good
Great.
thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Proper community.
Yes, it is. Yeah, very much rural type community.
Mm,
But and a lot of my clients are self-employed, so a lot of people working from home these days, and that might be a takeoff from
mm,
COVID still. I
mm.
think that's still influencing that side of things with a lot of people. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, I wanted to know why 3G. Why was the 3G fitness the name?
Oh, when I was first thinking about the name, we wanted to be something different, and I thought, why do people come? First off, they've got a goal. The
Right.
second thing is they want to get a program and then get going. So that's how the 3Gs came up. Was get a
Ah,
goal, get a program, get going,
like
and
it.
yeah. So it was just that simple thinking around of why do people go to a gym? What's the reason? And generally, the goal is one of the
Mm,
first things. So
mm,
yeah,
Yeah, you're there to solve a problem, get them from where they are to where they want to be, right?
absolutely,
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah.
I see you've done some SOMA training. I was talking to someone very recently. I think it was Carol in Wellington. She's done that SOMO. That's with Dwyer.
Yeah, with OD,
Yep.
I've been very very inspired by OD as a number of other international presenters at New Zealand Fitness Conference.
Mm.
So that's when I first met OD, and he decided to come to Christchurch and run the level one. And I was quite fascinated with the work that I saw him doing, but also the presentation of what he got us to do prior to the workshop and the learning to get that level one course. So
Mm.
yeah, I still run it today, and in fact, a number of trainers that were on that same course back in 2019 have actually come back to me to learn and refresh how to do it again because
Really?
I suppose it's like anything, Rich. You learn something, but it's then applying that
Mm.
and putting it into practice because that's
Mm.
when you become really good. And for me, I spent probably the good part of 4 or 5 months practicing it, learning it after the course,
Yep.
making sure that I was confident in my delivery and what I
Mm.
was delivering and that. And it just took off. But yeah, I think that's the key. We all learn stuff, but it's making sure that we we continue with that learning, refreshing ourselves, and then applying it.
Yeah.
And that's what I've done. And yeah, it's very, very popular. In fact, none of my clients generally do any stretching these days.
Yeah. Yeah.
We sort of have a bit of a policy around between sets. You grab a roller and you roll, or you use the vibration gun. And so
Okay.
the recovery is a constant thing in your session rather than
Mm.
something that's left to the end that quite often can be rushed due
Okay.
to time restraints. So
True.
yeah, yeah. So we do tend to program that in as part of the workout,
Okay.
opposed to leaving it to chance at the end.
That's interesting. I haven't come across that idea before. So, and so, what are the benefits of doing it that way? Obviously, it makes sure you get that recovery activity in as opposed to squeezing it at the end, John. But are there other benefits do you see? What do your clients report? What do you see as a result of doing it that way?
I think just that constant freedom of movement, because, no matter whether you're doing a bench press or you're doing something athletic, plyometric wise, you've got to have that movement, the ability to move through the joints, etc.
Mm, mm,
So we're stimulating the blood, we're returning the muscles back to where they should be. We're
mm,
getting that freedom through the joints. People just feel good about it. It's
mm.
probably a mental thing as much as a physical thing.
Okay.
And until you experience it, I think it's really hard to describe.
Mm,
Um, and it becomes a natural, I suppose it's a habit. It becomes a habit
yeah.
as a learning thing, and then progressing on to, all right, we just pick the roller up, we do it, and the same in the warm-ups. A lot of our warm-ups include the roller. Um, and rather than people just trying to do static type stretching and things like that,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
dynamic stretching rather. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's very much a movement-based activity for freedom as opposed to a static stretch type approach.
Yeah. Like we say in yoga, it's not probably doing a forward fold, for example. It's not how far down you go, it's how freely you move to get to where you get to.
Yes.
And I
Yes.
think OD really had that emphasis on the teaching that, you might not squat further, but you'll squat freer. And
Mm. Mm.
that's the benefit of
Mm.
doing SOMA, freeing up. And of course, SOMA is related to the bone as well as the muscle. So,
Yeah.
as
Yeah.
we know, we've got tissue all around that bone.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's worked really well in terms of delivering it into rehabilitation type work as well. Um, I use it. I donated 3 rollers to the rugby club here that I'm involved with as an S&C,
Mm.
and it took probably over 12 months to start educating the players on,
Yeah.
because rugby players are very much one mind or one
Yeah.
dimensional orientated. And
Yeah.
so, but now that's what you see all the time. The guys are on the rollers. So
Good.
it takes time, but if you can get that education across, the benefits with it, and teach them how to apply it correctly,
Mm.
yeah, it's
Mm.
it's great. And I think the massage gunners complements that nicely as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
They go
Yeah.
hand in hand. But yeah,
It's interesting what you just said about, it's not about how far you get, but it's how well you move on the way down there. And I think we've been conditioned to think that it's only about how far you get. In other words, what is the elasticity of my tissues, or how mobile, or how flexible, I think is probably the word that people would use the most. But that isn't, it can change day to day, that flexibility. It's not something that's fixed, is it? And the quality of the movement is a better measure.
oh, absolutely. And a good example of that, my dad's coming up 90 this year. He was a marathon runner and everything, and obviously doesn't run these days, but
Mm.
still walks for a good hour every day.
Yeah.
And just over 12 months ago, he came to me and said, "Look, John, I come back from a walk, so I'm feeling really sore, stiff, not feeling good. I'm getting pain."
Mm.
So I got him a roller, and I
Mm.
spent some time with him just teaching him how to use it on the wall. All that's gone now. He
Really?
walks freely as long as he wants, and that's a prime example of the power.
Mm.
It's educating people and giving them the power to look after their own bodies, because they know their bodies best, and
Yeah.
if they know how to use it properly, they get the benefits from it. And
Mm. Mm.
yeah, so I think at the end of the day, we look at stretching and things like that, but for a lot of people, time is of the essence. With a roller, you don't have to be warm. You can do it
Mm.
straight out of bed, straight
Mm.
home from work,
Mm.
and you can take it on holiday with you, or
Yeah.
those types of things. So
Yeah.
there should be no excuses. There should
Mhm.
be just reasons why to use it.
Yeah, agreed, agreed. I like that a lot. And he must be very grateful, your dad, for that little bit of advice and that time.
Yeah, very much so. In fact, he was telling me the other day he had a guy come into his home, and this guy was really tall, and he was changing some light bulbs, and the guy, dad said to him, "Oh, that's good having that height. You can change the light bulbs without a ladder." The
Mm.
guy says, "Yeah, but I get a really sore back." Dad went and got his roller and
Yeah.
showed him how to use the roller. And the guy said, after he'd used it, "Man, I've got to get one of these." So there you go. There's somebody who's not trained the way you or I might be, but
Mm. Mm.
believes in it and has experienced it, and that's why he believes in it.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah,
and and trying to influence other people.
yeah.
Uh,
Excellent. Paying it forward. Love it.
yeah, absolutely,
Mm.
absolutely.
I noticed, John, that you are quite an accomplished sportsman yourself. And there are a photo or two, not too many, but just a couple of snippets on your website of coast to coast. And I suspect that you're going to underplay this and not really blow your own trumpet, but you've done it a number of times, haven't you?
Yeah, I've competed 10 times in it. It was one of those events because I was a marathon runner for a long time, and traveled around doing lots of marathons. And I used to watch the coast to coast guys like Russell Prince in the
Mm,
early days when it was in at the beginning, and I
mm,
thought, wow, these guys are amazing. I could never do that. But then I went to a talk on Steve Gurney gave,
mm,
and I was inspired by the guy. he's not a natural athlete by any shape or form. If you look at
Okay.
his running technique, it is probably one of the worst you'll ever see. But he's got lots of other things, attributes that make him the athlete that he was. And that inspired me to have a go. And so one of my
Mm.
mates and I decided, why don't we have a crack at the 2 day? And did that. And then after that, thought, well, the 1 day's there. It's there to have a, I suppose it's like Hillary climbing Everest, isn't it? The challenge
Yeah.
is there. So take it
Yeah.
on.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's an event for everybody. Anybody can do it if you put a bit of training in.
Okay.
It's certainly, I learned a lot from it. But of course, yeah, that was just one of the things that I did for a long time, and started in '92 and did my last one in 2011.
Yeah.
But yeah, different experiences every
Mm.
single race,
Mm. Mm.
because of the environment, the weather,
Yeah.
those types of things.
Yeah.
And you always learn something. Every
Mm.
race, you learn
Mm.
something.
Mm. Mm.
And it might be from a novice too. You see them doing something. Oh, that's a good idea. That's so
Yeah.
logical. Why didn't I think of that?
Yeah.
You know, and away you go. So you're always improving, not to win the race, but to that personal best, trying to do
Mm.
better, and but also get the enjoyment out of competing in an event
Mm.
like that.
Mm. Mm.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Such a challenge. I mean, it's a significant task to take on. Is it as challenging in terms of sort of training volume as triathlon and having multiple disciplines? Is it along those lines in terms of sort of dedicating time?
I think so. If you, it's about smart training though, and I think with triathlons, similar to multi-sport, because you're doing different disciplines, as you get closer to the event, you can do two different disciplines a day, so it doesn't have that same effect on your body. So
Right.
you might go for a run in the morning, but in the afternoon you could sit on a bike or
Mm.
in a kayak, and paddle. So
Yep.
you're challenging your body in different ways, and of course the recovery's much quicker. But even when I was marathon running, I found that a lot of guys are running 6, 7 days a week, and
Mm.
they're beating their body up. To me, I got down to 4 days a week, but
Mm.
splitting it between interval training and long distance training. So it's about quality against quantity, I think, at
Mm.
the end of the
Mm.
day,
Mm.
and working on those weaknesses to improve your overall race, or your time in the event. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I like it. Yeah. And you've also got a gymnastics background, haven't you?
Yeah, that's probably where most of my sport started. I
Okay.
started very young, probably when I was about 6 years old, just recreational gymnastics. And I went into a club in Christchurch called Coppers Boys Club, and it stemmed years and years ago. My dad, his brothers all went there. It was a charitable organisation at the time, run by a local business, for sponsorship and things like that. And after 1 year there, I was picked out to compete at junior level. So I started competing and doing that, and suddenly started realizing I was winning things. I was good at this. I was
Ah.
playing rugby at the same time, and
Mm.
played rugby right up to colt level under 21. But I had to make that choice between gymnastics and playing rugby. And of course, with gymnastics, it's pretty much 6, 7 days a week, two
Mm.
to three
Mm.
hour training sessions at the top level. So,
Mm.
yeah, so I picked gymnastics and was fortunate enough to, that was where my forte was. That's what I was
Yeah.
good at. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And so what sort of level did you compete at?
I competed through to men's level, top level, but I went on my coaching. I found that I was probably in probably most sports, I'm better at coaching than doing. Um, but I went on and started coaching. I know my first year in coaching when I retired at about 19 years of age, and I was lucky I had mentors. Um, the president of the Canterbury Gymnastics Association at the time took me aside after the first year and said, you know, I want to mentor you and I want to give you some opportunities. And he nominated me straight away for Canterbury Junior Coach.
Mm.
And that was where it took off from. And that led through to New Zealand teams and travelling away and coaching the men's team there for a
Hmm.
number of years.
Yeah.
Yeah, had a number of senior men's New Zealand champions over the
Mm.
years.
Mm.
One guy was selected for Commonwealth Games. So,
Oh,
yeah, we
brilliant.
had a pretty good success rate as a coach as well as a gymnast. But it taught me so much because it's a very selfish sport,
Mm.
very
Mm.
individual.
Mm.
Um, but in saying that, there were some very good gymnasts uh, who were very, I suppose you have to be very intellectual in any sport at the top level
Mm.
because you've got to manage your time with
Mm.
training, university studies for all of these guys. But of course, at the end of it, a lot of them were coming out with degrees and being able to apply that training and manage time for study and also life in general,
Yeah.
because social life is very small in those days. In
Yeah.
terms when you're competing at the top level, your whole dedication and commitment is to training to be the number one. So
Mm.
yeah,
Mm. Mm.
and as a coach, you've got to apply that same level of discipline and motivation as the gymnast. It's because you're leading, you're their role, their
Yeah.
leader. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And so would it was it the fact that you were in that coaching space for such a long time that it lent itself so well to what you do now?
Yeah, I think so. Especially sitting on different committees at executive levels, I learned a lot through about processes, how to manage financial stuff like that, which is
Mm.
obviously a good learning curve for when you're setting up your own business and
Mm.
running it, because you're running it a very similar way.
Mm.
But yeah, the skills you learn and you make mistakes as you go, of course, when you're learning. But yeah, when you learn what those mistakes are and how to correct them, but then also how to apply what you've learned, that's going to benefit the gymnast or any sports person that you're coaching. I think that's when the reward comes through their success,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
that's where you measure yourself. I think as a coach,
Mm.
or even in our personal training business or in group fitness, it's the success or the achievements that your clients get is the measurement of what
Yeah.
you've done, how you've contributed to them.
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. First great tip. I think that's a great lead in to asking you for some additional tips. What sort of things have stood the test of time for you? And obviously that sounds like one, that background there in terms of not just the hands-on coaching, but the processes in behind the whole coaching, um, I guess, business in a way, isn't it? It's there's management, there's a whole multiple levels that you're involved in, and some of that translates nicely into being in your business for yourself. But are there other things that sort of stood the test of time for you, John, that you could have stake in the ground? That's a must do.
I think the biggest thing is being able to learn and listen and and absorb that information and then being able to take it away and apply it.
Mm.
Because, some of the best sports people in the world don't necessarily make the best coaches, and that's proven all the time.
Mm.
However, there's some, and I put myself in this category where I may not have been the top sports person, but I believe I'm probably a better coach or trainer, and that's been defined through my learning. I've wanted to learn, I've kept an open mind. That's happened with my business over the last 12, 18 months since I've joined the holistic group. It's
Yeah.
changed my whole outlook and the way I run my business. And what am I doing for my clients? Where's the benefits? And so I think the learning is the big thing, having that open mind and not being
Mm. Mm.
one dimensional with everything and saying this is gospel, this is what we do, this is how we do it. We're lucky we're in an evolving industry that keeps changing, with the
Mm.
amount of research and evidence that's produced for us, and we can still make informed decisions whether we accept that or not. But we have the power to make those changes, implement those changes, and the benefit is to the people we work with, whether it be as a coach or a personal trainer or a group fitness instructor, whatever.
Mm. Mm.
I think as long as you keep thinking what the end result or who the end result's for, not ourselves, but for the people that we work with.
Yeah.
And to me, that's a real big,
Mm, mm.
really important at the end of the day.
That's
Yeah.
brilliant. I like that. And it sounds like going back to what you talked about with the SOMA, um, you were pretty organized and disciplined about coming back to your business and implementing the learning and solidifying that knowledge in your mind. Is that something that you take the same approach to all learning?
Yeah, most definitely. And I think one of the things for me is, and if I use OD as a good example, is believing in who the man is, what he's delivering. Um, because people can tell you a lot of things, but what's their background? Where did they come from? Where did they get their information? Um, how knowledgeable are they? And is it actual factual stuff? Where's the evidence surrounding what they're what they're presenting? And so for me, I think that's the first thing that you have to do, because there's no point learning something and you go, well, that really doesn't stack up, and you go back to your business and deliver it well.
Mm,
It's your credibility on the line as
sure.
well. So I think for me, the learning's the key part, but it's who are you learning off? And Dave with holistic movement coaching, I mean,
Mm,
that again is someone else I met through New Zealand Fitness Conference, went to a number of workshops,
yep.
started to get to know the man, what he's about and why he does what he does and things,
Mm,
and thought, I want to follow this guy. He inspires me. OD inspires me. These are the
yeah.
people that are going to forge my pathway forward and change my business.
Mm,
And my clients, I think, respect that as well, because you're not one dimensional. You're not delivering the same thing. We
mm.
have a real firm policy here that if you're a personal training client, you don't do the same program more than once on each
Right.
session. So you come in, you'll get a new program, and the client's involved in helping with that program.
Yeah.
Obviously, after evaluation of
Yeah.
the client and everything, but
Yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
because that gets buy-in from the client,
Mm,
opposed to me just
mm,
saying this is it. And yeah, they probably have confidence in me as a trainer to believe what I'm saying and things like that. But I
mm.
think it's more powerful that they're involved in the programming of what they're doing to meet their goals and their needs and their
Absolutely.
enjoyment level, I think is the
Yeah.
other thing,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know.
Some like variety, some like routine. Yes, there's a big mix of needs.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm, mm,
Absolutely.
mm.
Um,
Fantastic. Any other tips in there, John, that may not have been shared yet?
I think the key for me is having a complete, every now and then stop, take a breath, and have a complete look at you and the way that you look at life in general.
Mm,
And I'll give you a really good example. In 25th of September 2016, so I
mm,
run a lot of social events in my business,
hmm.
and one of those events I run is every fourth Sunday in the month, we do a social bike ride. And
Nice.
so everyone's welcome. And we go to a cafe. They don't know where they're going to go. I lead them on a tiki tour
Yeah.
around the town, and we end up at a cafe and coffee, etc.
Yeah.
Anyway, on the 25th of September 2016, we just headed
Mm,
off down the road. We were less than half a k from start point. One of the ladies had forgotten something, so we stopped. We said, "We'll wait here. You go back." And we're all standing around talking. And apparently, next minute, I passed out on the ground, and they thought I
crikey.
was playing silly buggers, as I do. And anyway, it turned out I had a major heart attack, and I ended up with a quadruple bypass. I was lucky that one of the people in my group was a cardiologist, so they performed CPR, and
Yeah.
because as we know that only 6% of um, people who become unconscious with a heart attack survive,
Mm,
and I suppose a lot of those people are because they might be on their own at the time it happens, so you
mm,
don't perform CPR. So
mm,
coming out of that changed the whole way I looked at stuff. The don't stress over those little things.
mm, mm,
Try and
mm,
be happy and keep enjoyment in other people's life. Don't stress them out. Don't bring
mm.
negativity into their life. And if you haven't got it in your life, you're probably not going to bring it into theirs. It's about
Yes.
shining that positive stuff into them.
Yeah.
So my whole outlook on life and what I do and how I go about things pretty much changed overnight. Um, I think we take life for granted, and that's not the case. I think from the day you're born, you're preparing for death. So what you
Mm,
do in between those times is really, really important if you want to leave some sort of legacy or um, some impression on people's lives.
yeah.
And so,
Yeah.
what you do and how you think are really key factors, I think.
I like that. I saw a post the other day where it was the a photo of a gravestone. It had the birth date and the dash, and then the death date. And the post was, "It's all about the dash." And I thought, yes, it is all about the dash.
That is a brilliant way of looking at that.
Yeah, yeah,
Absolutely brilliant. Yeah,
yeah.
I might steal that.
But that goes to your point exactly, John, doesn't it? In terms of, it's about what you do, making the most of the things that you do, not taking things too seriously, stopping and smelling the roses. And I think it's interesting hearing your story there. I mean, you were amongst clients, friends, colleagues. You were in probably the most safest place you could be, surrounded by people that cared for you, and you had a cardiologist on tap. I mean, the chances of, those circumstances being just like that would probably be fairly rare, but because of what you do, and it's a regular thing, your chances of survival were probably a little bit higher because of what you do.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. And I think that you've got to stop and think, well, there was a reason for that. Whatever your beliefs might be, there's a reason for that. And I mean,
Yeah.
I'm not a real religious person, but for
Mm,
some reason, I think, well, I've been given a second chance,
mm.
and my clients and I, we joke about it all the time.
Right.
And I might say something, well, I've been brought back to give your life hell here in the gym and make you suffer. And we laugh about it. But in
Yeah.
seriousness,
Yeah.
I think you go, right, I've got to do something positive with the
Mm,
rest of whatever time that you're on this planet. So,
mm, mm.
yeah, it changes your whole perspective of everything, not just one thing.
Yeah.
And to me, not many people get that chance. So, yeah,
Yeah.
you take it. Yep.
Yeah. That's awesome. Well, thanks, John. I've loved chatting. It's been really interesting learning more about yourself and your business, and thank you for your vulnerability and what happened on 25th of September 2016. I think a lot of people will appreciate that story and really probably resonate with a lot of people. So thank you.
You're welcome. It's been lovely talking with you, Rich. Thanks very much for the
Cheers.
opportunity.
Cheers.